Common sense is not common practice. Today, I want to talk about how do you deal with people who doesn't have common sense. A lot of people say, well, you should have common sense. That's common sense. But you know what? Common sense is simply not common practice for most people. And common sense is not common sense for most people. I dealt with so many people in my career, and I'm going to tell you, many of these people I'm dealing with, they ain't got no common sense. Okay? Let's first define what common sense is. Common sense to me is simply pick the simplest solution, the most effective solution to a problem without getting a lot of headache. That's common sense, right? Common sense doesn't mean that you have to be perfect. Common sense doesn't mean that you don't make mistakes. Okay, let's get that straight here. Common sense simply means that most of the time you have good judgment that other people ultimately believe in your decision. They buy into your direction because you simply have common sense. You always make the best judgment that give the most effective solution. That's, to me, is what common sense is about. But unfortunately, as I said, over the years, I had to deal with a lot of people who doesn't have common sense. I'll give you an example. Years ago, I was doing a seminar back in the East Coast. At lunchtime, I got one of the guy in the office, and I say, look, go get me a turkey sandwich. Guess what he came back with? He came back with a hamburger, and I'm like, why did you get me a hamburger? And he said, well, because Subway were out of turkey sandwich. They were out of turkey. You see, common sense would be what? For a person should be, hey, Subway is out of turkey sandwich. The next common sense decision would be what? Find another Subway. And if there's another Subway, it's closed down. What is the next common sense decision should be? Maybe I go to Safeway and get at least a similar sandwich, but it's just not Subway, but it's turkey with no cheese and simply add lettuce, right? But no, he came back with a hamburger with mayonnaise, something totally different. I'm telling you these stories because there are a lot of people, that you're going to be working with, that you'll be dealing with in your personal life. They don't have common sense. So many people have asked me over the years is that, how do you deal with this kind of people, right? The first thing I'm going to tell you right now is make sure you control your own emotion, okay? Don't make sure you control your own anger, okay? That's important because when I was much younger back then, it irritates the heck out of me when I see somebody who has no common sense. It irritates me. It makes me angry. And here's the bottom line. When I become emotional, when I become angry because they ain't got no common sense, guess what? It dragged me down. It down my emotion. The whole day I'm not feeling well. Just simply because somebody did something stupid. As I grew older, and especially as being an entrepreneur for many years, I eventually evolved to be an individual, no longer making judgment on anybody else. And you know what I do now? I accept people who they are. If they're stupid, I accept they're being stupid. If they're arrogant, no problem with me. If they don't have no common sense, I accept them for who they are. So I no longer get emotional and angry when I'm dealing with somebody who doesn't have any common sense. That's important because someone who doesn't have common sense can literally ruin your entire day or entire week. So the next time you're trying to exit the highway, you see a car stopped because it's out of gas and that car blocked the exit that you're trying to exit. Please do not jump out of the car and kick somebody else's car because you know what's going to happen? Number one, you might get into a fight and get hurt yourself, or maybe you hurt other people and ending up go to jail. And number two, it's going to cost you a lot of money because you kicked somebody's car. So control your own anger, control your own emotion. Another tip, get them to simplify. People who usually doesn't have common sense, they don't know how to fill in the blank. Anytime you ask them to fill in the blank, it's very complicated. It's very difficult for them. So instead of having them to fill in the blank of something, give them multiple choices, A or B. You see, get them to simplify. For example, Hamburger or hot dog? They're both great. Which one do you want? That's what you need to be doing when you're dealing with people who doesn't have a lot of common sense. Another tip I'm giving to you when you're dealing with people who doesn't have common sense is you need to push the button harder. People who doesn't have common sense, usually they kind of like soft. They kind of like, in a la land. You need to hit the buttons harder. Meaning when you're talking to them, talk to them directly. Talk to them firmly. But understand, go hard on the issue. Don't go hard on the person. That's the important part. If they're doing something stupid, out of common sense, talk about the issue. Be strong on the issue. Be harder on the issue, but not the person. If you learn how to do that, usually that's going to give you a better results of this individual start to make some improvement. And that's what I learned over the years is that always go hard on the issue, not the person. Another tip I want to give it to you. I think this is the fourth tip on dealing with people who doesn't have common sense. Make the consequences very clear. All right? Tell them if you're driving, if you're texting, if you're trying to turn on the music all simultaneously together, you can and you will get into a car crash and you can die. Make the consequences very clear. If you trying to fill out this application, you miss the social security number, you miss the address of the client, which is a common sense for people to fill in. And if you miss that, guess what's going to happen? It's going to delay the transaction, and most likely your client will cancel this transaction and you will lose your commission. You see what I'm doing? Make the consequences clear, whatever you try to deliver to them. Fifth tip, and this is a pretty bad one. And I do it all the time as I became busier and busier in the business world, as I accumulate a lot of my success. Eventually, you know what I had to do? Outsource it to someone else who got the patience. There are people in your circle. There are people in your company. There are people in your office. There are people that's around you. They actually do have more patience to deal with people who doesn't have common sense. Okay? And those are the people that sometimes they're less busy. Sometimes they have a lot more time, right? Usually busy people, successful people, they don't really have a lot of time to deal with people who doesn't have any common sense. You get what I'm saying? So outsource it to one of your coworker and making sure they are receiving some kind of benefits. If you want this coworker to deal with this particular individual who doesn't have a lot of common sense. So outsource it as you become more and more successful. And the last tip I want to tell you right now is pretty straightforward. When is enough for you? You know, we always have that saying, enough is enough. When I deal with people who doesn't have any common sense, and as I'm getting busier, as I'm getting more workloads, when I have to deal with so many other people, I have to ask myself a question. When is enough for this individual that I've been dealing for the last 90 days who doesn't have common sense? And I have to look at numbers at the end of the day, right? If I'm dealing with somebody who doesn't have any common sense, how much this individual per se, for example, if this person works for you in your company, in the sales department, if I'm dealing with him every day, can he produce $10,000 revenue for the company? If he does, and I'm not that busy, and my company's not that big yet, maybe I have to continue to deal with him because he's producing $10,000 revenue for the company. Now, if I'm dealing with somebody who doesn't have any common sense, and this person produced nothing, 90 days is enough for me. I gotta move on. Right? You got what I'm saying? When is enough enough? And to make that decision, you have to look at numbers specifically and whatever that might be. Okay? So that's my recipe and that's my formula how to handle and deal with people who doesn't have any common sense. Okay? Make sure don't get angry. Don't kick no chairs. Don't break no glasses. Keep yourself intact. I hope you love my message of this video. Always love your comments. Please post your comments. Please share my video to anyone that you think need to be listening to this message. Okay? And of course, always make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't done so yet. JW here, and see you next time. Peace out. JW here. If you like my content, comment below and download my JW Just Win app. See you next time.